Welcome. From this lecture onwards, I will give you information about the physiology of gastrointestinal tract. This is the first lecture, so it is essential to understand functional anatomy of GIT. So let us begin. Objective of this lecture is to understand functions of gastrointestinal tract, to understand organization of structure of GIT and innervation of various parts of gastrointestinal tract. The digestive tract is 10 meters or 30 feet long. It extends from mouth to rectum, including anus. So digestive system, it contains digestive organs like stomach, small intestine, large intestine and various accessory organs of digestion that are useful in the process of the digestion and absorption like teeth, tongue, salivary glands, liver and pancreas. Functional organization of gastrointestinal tract. Mouth is the external opening. Through the mouth, food enters inside the gastrointestinal tract. The cavity inside the mouth is known as oral cavity, and this oral cavity it contains tongue, teeth and various openings of the salivary glands. Various functions like chewing, swallowing, mastication that took place inside the oral cavity. After the process of the swallowing or the deglutition, food enters inside the pharynx. Pharynx contains three parts: nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx. Nasal cavity, it opens inside the nasopharynx. Posterior part of the oral cavity is known as oropharynx, and the pharynx which communicates with larynx is known as laryngopharynx. Oropharynx is a common passage for both gastrointestinal tract and respiratory system. From the oropharynx, food enters inside the esophagus. Esophagus is 25 cm long fibromuscular tube. At the upper end, it contains upper esophageal sphincter, and at the lower end, where esophagus open inside the stomach, it contains lower esophageal sphincter. By various peristaltic contraction, food bolus inside the esophagus, it enters inside the stomach. Stomach is hollow bag-like structure and it serves various functions like storage of the food, mixing of the food and slow emptying of the food from pyloric end of the stomach inside the small intestine. Small intestine contains three parts. The first C-set part, it is known as duodenum, from which food enters inside the jejunum and then ileum. Through the ileocecal valve, food enters inside the large intestine. Large intestine, it contains various parts like cecum, appendix, ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, sigmoid colon, rectum and anus. Through anus, undigested food particles, sloughed out epithelial cells, various gastrointestinal secretion, they are excreted into the external environment. Now understand about the functions of the gastrointestinal system or the digestive system. The first function is the ingestion of food. Ingestion is the process of the intake of food by placing food in mouth. Mastication is process by which large food particles they are broken down into the smaller particles which can be swallowed, and this process is known as deglutition. Digestion is the process by which large foodstuffs they are broken down into small foodstuffs that can be absorbed by action of various digestive enzymes. For example, by the action of the amylase starch they are converted into the monosaccharides, they can be absorbed. By the action of the protease, proteins they are converted into dipeptides and amino acids, and lipases they convert fats to monoglycerides and free fatty acids which can be absorbed in our gastrointestinal tract. Absorption of the nutrients, water and electrolyte to circulation occurs in gastrointestinal tract. Undigested food particles, various secretion, sloughed of epithelial cells, they are removed from the GIT, and this process is known as egestion. All these products they are removed as feces. Gastrointestinal system, it is also important for fluid and electrolyte balance. Daily consumption of water is about 1 to 1.5 liter and daily secretion of water in intestine is about 7 liter, out of which 90% of the water is normally reabsorbed and only 100 ml fluid and 100 gram of the solids they are excreted. Decrease in the reabsorption capacity of the intestine, it results in diarrhea and dehydration. Gastrointestinal system, it is also important for the immunity. Various gut associated lymphoid tissues, they protect the body from the pathogenic organism and they prevent the entry of the pathogenic organism inside our body. Acidic secretion of the stomach, they also prevent the entry of the organism through oral route. Intestinal bacterial flora. Various non-pathogenic bacteria inhabit intestine and they form normal bacterial flora of intestine. And this bacterial flora, it is essential for many intestinal functions like permeability to electrolytes, absorption of the vitamins, stimulation of the enzymatic activity, peristalsis, as well as for the mucus secretion. These bacteria, they also detoxify many toxins present in the chyme and prevent their absorption in the bloodstream. So now let us revise the functions of the gastrointestinal tract. These are the important functions. Ingestion of the food. This is the process by which food enters inside the gastrointestinal tract. After that, the secretion of the gastrointestinal system. It converts these larger food particles into the small food particles and this process is known as digestion. These small foodstuffs, they can be absorbed in the blood or the lymphatic vessel and this process is known as absorption. Undigested food particles, excessive secretions, as well as loss of epithelial cells, these are the excretory products removed from the gastrointestinal tract to the external environment and this process is known as defecation. Gastrointestinal wall, it is also important for immunity purpose. It prevents entry of the pathogenic organisms inside our body by the actions of various gut associated lymphatic tissues. Bacterial flora, it is also present inside the gastrointestinal system, which is also important for various functions. Now it is time to understand the structure of wall of GIT. The innermost layer of the GIT is the mucosa. Here we can see the innermost layer, that is the mucosa, and this mucosal layer, it contains epithelium, lamina propria and muscularis mucosa. Epithelium of mucosa, it is mainly stratified squamous epithelium and cells are bound to each other by tight junctions. In stomach and intestine, simple columnar epithelium is present which facilitates secretion and absorption. This epithelium also contains endocrine cells which are also known as enterochromaffin cells that secretes local hormones. Lamina propria is the another layer which is present in the mucosa. It is a loose connective tissue that contains collagen and elastin fibers. It is rich in blood vessel, lymph nodes and lymphatic ducts. It also contains nerve fibers and capillaries. Lymphatic tissue present in this layer, it forms the local immune system. It prevents entry of the pathogenic organism from gastrointestinal tract inside our body. Muscularis mucosa, it is the innermost layer of the intestinal smooth muscle. In stomach and intestine, throws the mucous membrane into folds and ridges. In intestine, it forms plica semilunaris. In small intestine, it produces local movements that facilitate the process of the digestion and absorption. After the mucosa, the another layer is the submucosa. Here we can see this is the submucosa. It is a loose connective tissue and is highly vascular. We can see various nerve fibers in the submucosa. It is known as submucosal plexus or plexus of Meissner. In intestine, submucosa contains lymphatic tissue also. Muscular layer, this is known as muscularis externa. It consists of two layers of smooth muscle. The inner circular layer and outer longitudinal muscle layers, they are present. A nerve plexus is located between the muscle layers. It is known as myenteric plexus or plexus of Orbeck. Orbeck plexus contains fibers from both the division of autonomic nervous system. Muscularis externa primarily controls the motility of gastrointestinal tract. Serosa, it is the outermost layer in gastrointestinal tract. This is a thin layer of the connective tissue covered by squamous mesothelial cells. It provides external protection to gastrointestinal tract and it also helps in attachment of gut to surrounding structures. Innervation of gastrointestinal tract. There are two major networks of nerve fibers that innervate gastrointestinal tract and they are known as intrinsic and extrinsic innervation. Together they form enteric nervous system. Enteric nervous system, it contains more than 100 million neurons, as many as are found in whole spinal cord and autonomic nervous system. So enteric nervous system, it contains sensory, motor and interneurons, so it is also known as little brain. Enteric nervous system, it consists of intrinsic innervation and extrinsic innervation. Intrinsic innervation from myenteric plexus and Meissner's plexus and extrinsic innervation by sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. Intrinsic nervous system includes nerve cells and fibers which originate and located in the intestinal wall itself. It supplies smooth muscles of gastrointestinal system. It is further divided in two plexuses, myenteric plexus and Meissner's plexus. Both plexuses, they are interconnected and are under extrinsic autonomic nervous control, which is also known as gut-brain axis. Myenteric plexus. Myenteric plexus, it lies between longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layer. Here we can see this is the myenteric plexus which is present between the longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layer. Its stimulation increases activity of gut. It is mainly motor in function. It increases tone of gut wall, increases rate and intensity of contraction in gut. Meissner's plexus. It lies between submucosal layer and inner smooth muscle layer. It is mainly sensory in function. It controls exocrine and endocrine secretion in cells of GIT. Extrinsic innervation to gastrointestinal tract is from parasympathetic and sympathetic division of autonomic nervous system. First of all, the parasympathetic innervation. Parasympathetic system is also known as craniosacral outflow and it innervates gastrointestinal tract through vagus nerve and the pelvic nerve. Vagus nerve, it innervates esophagus, stomach, small intestine and portion of the large intestine up to the transverse colon, and the remaining part of the large intestine, it is innervated by pelvic nerves. Stimulation of the parasympathetic system, it produces increase in the motility and tone of the gastrointestinal tract. It produces relaxation of sphincters, so it is evacuatory in nature and it increases secretion from stomach and from intestine. Sympathetic innervation. Sympathetic innervation is also known as thoracolumbar outflow. So from the thoracolumbar region, from various superior cervical ganglion and prevertebral ganglia, it supplies all the portion of the gastrointestinal system. Stimulation of the sympathetic system produces decrease in motility and tone of gastrointestinal tract, contraction of sphincters and inhibition of the secretion from stomach and intestine. It also produces vasoconstriction. Let us summarize innervation of gastrointestinal system by enteric nervous system. So enteric nervous system, it is composed of intrinsic innervation and extrinsic innervation. Intrinsic innervation by myenteric plexus and submucosal plexus. Myenteric plexus, it controls movement and tone of the gastrointestinal tract, and submucosal plexus, it controls secretomotor activity of gastrointestinal tract. Myenteric and Meissner plexus, they are under control of the extrinsic innervation by the sympathetic system and the parasympathetic system. So the enteric nervous system, it controls activity of the smooth muscles, secretory cells or glands in GIT and epithelial cells. At the end of this lecture, you have learned about the gastrointestinal tract and its functional anatomy. So gastrointestinal system, it extends from mouth to anus and it serves various important functions like ingestion or intake of food, digestion of the food particles, absorption of various nutrients and excretion of waste products. It is also important for immunity and various gastric juices. They also prevents entry of the bacteria inside our body. The walls of the GIT, it contains various structures inside and they are mucosa, submucosa and muscularis externa, and it is innervated by intrinsic innervation and extrinsic innervation. Intrinsic innervation by plexus of Meissner or submucosal plexus and myenteric plexus or plexus of Orbeck. This intrinsic innervation, it is also influenced by extrinsic innervation by sympathetic system and parasympathetic system. In next lecture, I will give you more information about the salivary secretion. Thank you.